Okay, there we go. This is John Gonder for Chabot Las Positas College District, and this is a how-to video on installing Trace Wrangler. We're going to demonstrate that. So first off, well, who authored this? This is from Jasper Bongerts. This is his blog URL and his Twitter handle. Jasper Bongerts is one of the prime people behind Wireshark, and he has written and maintained this program for some years, which is of tremendous use for anybody doing network analysis who needs to share or document things. This is Trace Wrangler, which is used for anonymizing packet traces and sanitizing them, and we'll go through the process of installing it and then examples of how to use it. Why do we want to do that? Because a trace file contains a lot of information, and in the case of data packets that are not encrypted, they contain a lot of personal or confidential information about the network itself, how it is organized, and often we do not really want to document that information or store it somewhere. When we're concerned about anonymization is really when we're storing stuff, or when we're going to let anybody else look at it, or when we're sharing things. For instance, I might often take a trace file and then use that as part of a class, or use that as part of a training at a conference where I'm presenting. And I have certain things I want to talk about with reference to that trace file, or you have certain things you want to document about how the network was operating, but you don't want to have confidential information that has no bearing on the reason why you're using this trace file. So we're going to go to tracewrangler.com and get that and do that installation. That's where it's located. Updates and documentation are there. So here's how we're going to do it. I have a Windows machine here that I'm using, and I'm going to open up a browser and go to tracewrangler.com. So it's a really straightforward, plain website, what you might see by somebody who's actually just writing code and not worried about what their website looks like. So this is a toolkit that allows us to work with actually the current PCAP-NG file format, and we can read and write a lot of different kinds of files, and then sanitize or scrub packet captures that are created by Wireshark or other programs. We can edit files in a batch and merge files. There's a lot of tools that have been added to this in the years since it was first created. So March 24, 2020 is the most recent version. There's a 64-bit version, and actually the source code, and then there's documentation both online. Let's take a look at the online documentation here. There you go. Always good to read the documentation. Getting help, starting Trace Wrangler, scanning files, the main window, all the things that you need to do the functions that you might choose now, or additional functions you might choose later when you want to do some more complex editing of files. And then it also is available as a PDF file. Let's go get that just for fun. And let's open up that PDF file and take a quick look at it. Trace Wrangler, and it contains basically the same information that's there for you online. One nice thing about having the PDF is you can have that open in part of the screen while you read about it, or read about the steps to do something while you have another window open while you're going ahead and doing that. The main window, what are the tools available, what are the tasks that you might do, and typically how to do them. What are the various settings or abilities available for the different protocols that you might be working with, extracting information, merging information, editing, your preferences, etc., and additional tools. In my classes, we're primarily going to be using it for some basic things like changing the IP addresses or changing the media access control addresses to anonymize the structure of the network and preserve the anonymity of our network structure, while at the same time being able to keep that packet trace for later use. So let's go back. And then scroll the rest of the way. There's change logs. There's a presentation that he did about that, and you can actually go to the SharkFest 2013 and listen to his lecture about it. There's a change log and updates, feedback, known issues currently. There you go. So let's go back up here and let's get the 64-bit version, Trace Wrangler 0.6.8 build 949. There's a signature here so you can verify that this is an MD5 hash, so you can verify that this actually is a valid and unmodified version of this application. Okay, so now that I've saved that, let's go here and I'm going to show my downloads. I actually downloaded that twice. So now I'm going to go ahead and open that zip file, and here's the MD5, here's the application itself, here's some additional applications. And let's see, there we go. So when I double click on Trace Wrangler, I get the idea to extract it all. I'm going to put it in, let's see, well, it's going to be in downloads, Trace Wrangler, extract that all. You can put it wherever you want it. And once I've done that, I should be able to run the Trace Wrangler application. And now I see the basic Trace Wrangler, very straightforward, very plain, old school Windows application screen. So add files, or I could add a whole directory of files, and then I can decide what it is I want to do with them. So now I have Trace Wrangler, I've got it installed. Now what do we do with it next? Well, three common things that I might want to do with a trace file would be to anonymize the IP addresses. So they'll still be relative to each other. The conversations will still be there, but the IP addresses involved will be changed globally. Same thing with the media access control addresses. And then I want to anonymize the data that might be included inside the packets, the three basic things we might want to do. Well, you can choose whatever kind of trace file you might want to use to play around with. Any of the trace files that are in our trace file subdirectory, or something you might have handy to go ahead and use something that has a few packets. In this case, I've got a trace file, a baseline trace file I created that's already on the desktop here, and it contains, down in the bottom right, I see a little over 12, almost 13,000 packets, 12,613 packets. And let me go ahead and take a look at the analysis here. Under statistics, let me see the capture file properties. I could see a little bit about it. We've got a lot of different types here. Let's see what addresses we've got. We've got a number of different addresses there. What about my conversations here from the point of view of conversations? Let's see, I've got a number of different IP addresses, and you can see what they are here. 1.64. So I might want to compare this once I've anonymized it. So maybe just for fun, I'm going to scroll down here to where there's a number of different addresses here. Got the 1.64 and these. Just for fun, I'm going to take a screenshot of that. And let's go ahead and do that. There's my conversations. So my first step is going to be to add a file. I'm looking on the desktop here, and here's the Gonder baseline. As a matter of fact, I've already done this demonstration here, and you can see there's two versions of this. One is baseline and the other is baseline anon, and that's the file name addition that Trace Wrangler adds once that process has been done. Actually, I've demonstrated Trace Wrangler a couple times here. Here's a Chabot email trace, and then here's anonymous. So this was when email was not working. That's an example of that. So, but let's start this again. I'm going to add this to here. Trace Wrangler added that in, and it tells me information about it. It's 4 megs, it's a PCAP, has 12,630, and there's no task currently assigned it. Well, here's a task called anonymize files. Here's one called extract particular packets, edit files like remove OSI model layers, or merge files, put files together and filter packets. We're interested in anonymizing, and when I click on that, then I get a set of links over here to various layers of the packet, the OSI model layers: application, support, layer 4, layer 3, layer 2, and then I can choose, if I don't care to take the defaults, what it is that I want to be done. So PCAP NG, do I want to remove the comments? Do I want to sanitize the interface header blocks? What about at layer 2? If it's layer 802.11, I could replace the SSIDs names. So if I want to keep my Wi-Fi SSIDs secret, I could just replace those names in the SSID. At the Ethernet layer, I could replace the media access control address. I could either pass through the existing, that's not going to be modified, or replace it, and then Trace Wrangler will choose what the replacement will be. And we need to recalculate the cyclic redundancy check so all the checksums don't turn out to be bad. When I want to randomize, I could put a black marker in there, or I could just randomize it. And if what I want to do, though, is be able to use this to identify the manufacturer of the media access control address, but keep secret the serial number, half of the media access control address, I can say preserve the Ethernet trailer, if any, there. If I have VLANs in here, I could change the VLAN IDs. So they're all going to remain relative, but what I have for my VLAN IDs or my tunneling is going to be changed. IP version 4, replace the IP addresses either by a list or automatically. IP version 6, replace the IP addresses. ICMP, we could remove the ping payload so that we are not identifying the operating system of the devices that are working. I could remove just certain parts of these, only remove packets that have certain messages. Again, ICMP version 6, same kind of thing. Replace the fully qualified domain names for the DNS servers and remove the ping payload, so that the devices that I have are not identifiable, but I can still use the trace file. At the TCP layer, I could replace the port numbers either by a list, and then the TCP port numbers by a list. The sockets or the ports, I want to replace them so that the ports are different. Same thing with UDP, I could replace things. For DHCP, I could replace the fully qualified domain names for the 8 DHCP servers. And RTPS again. So basically we're keeping the usefulness of this trace file, but we're replacing the identifiable information. Now I'm going to go ahead here and accept all of these defaults. I'm just going to say OK. And now we have, for this file, we have a task identified and the aspects of that task are defined. So I could have more than one task by adding a second task, but I'm just going to go ahead and run this now. And depending on the complexity of the tasks that I assign and the size of the file, running it may take just a few seconds, or it may take the space of a couple of minutes. There's a status bar up here in the right hand, and now the status says task complete. So let me minimize this and let me go here to, here's my baseline, here's my original, and then here's my baseline anon. So let me double click this and open this up in Wireshark, and now I see I've got 192.168.36. Let me just go up here to my statistics and look at my result. I'm sorry, I meant to go here and look at my conversations, and now I see I've got different numbers involved instead of, let me open up my screenshot that I took before. So where before I had 38.17 and then 1.64, now I've got 3.36, and so all the numbers are different now, but they're consistent. The same conversations are there, the same packets and all that. So there we go. I have anonymized this conversation, and then what may often happen is you will be asked to wow, gotta love Windows. You'll be asked to compare and maybe take a screenshot of your original versus your anonymized. So that's what I'm going to do right now. I've set these out here so that I can compare and contrast these. And there we go, I took a screenshot. So if I have the job of anonymizing a file and then showing that I've anonymized the file, I've got two sets of IP addresses here that I took a screenshot for. So let me open up a second one. I opened up the Chabot email NOT, And this is a pretty ugly looking trace file here, isn't it? It's a lot of black stuff going on there. We're trying to connect here, and it's not happening. It's not happening. So there's really only 2 IP addresses here because I filtered out everything else when I saved this trace example of the email system not working. So I took a screenshot of that, and now I'm going to go back to Trace Wrangler again. And in this case, I'm going to right-click and say remove that file, and I can right-click and say add file. So this is a nicely well-written program, a lot of ways you can do things. And so let's add the email. The task here is for anonymize. It's already there. I'm again just going to take the defaults and go ahead and run that. It's going to be pretty quick. Task is complete because it was pretty basic. I'm going to quit out of that, and let me go to my, here's my knot, and where's my Chabot Anon. Double click that to open in Wireshark, and we see now we've got different IP addresses here. And if I was to look inside, I didn't check before to see what the MAC addresses were, but I would see that Trace Wrangler has kept the left-hand half of the media access control address that defines the manufacturer, so I can identify these devices, but I can't identify exactly which device it is because the right-hand half has been changed. And so now what I might do is go back up here again to the conversations, and I'm going to open that screenshot and move that over there, and then I might take another screenshot when I'm completing my job here to show that I've anonymized this. But so now I've got an anonymized trace file. I could share this up on CloudShark. I could take this with me to a presentation, and I could share this with people, and important and identifiable and confidential information that otherwise would be contained in the trace file is no longer there. I might be sharing this with someone because I'm having trouble figuring things out. So I can give this to them, they can tell me what they think about it, but nonetheless I have not distributed confidential or important or delicate information. So now it's your turn to go and get Trace Wrangler, install that, read the documentation, and try out some of the various things that you can do with Trace Wrangler to anonymize or eliminate data or change it. Experiment around, have some fun. Remember that the basic things we want to do are anonymizing the IP MAC address and maybe the data inside. But nonetheless, there you go. There's Trace Wrangler, how to get it, how to install it, and the basic uses for it. So have fun with that, and that's one of the things we'll make use of in a number of the different classes, and you can make use of for yourself when you need to share or otherwise work with other people with trace files that contain identifiable and confidential information.